Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are taking a journey to explore Celtic spirituality and ritual.
Ooh, that sounds fascinating.
It is. And to help us along this journey, we're going to be using this book, The Apple Branch, by Alexei Kondratiev.
Okay, so the apple branch, what's that all about?
Well, it's going to be kind of our guidebook
All right.
for this
This
exploration.
is good.
But, we like to keep things interesting around here, so we also have this really cool book review that
Oh,
we're going to be looking at, which actually critiques the apple branch from a Celtic reconstructionist viewpoint.
oh, very interesting. So we're going to be kind of comparing and contrasting a couple different perspectives here.
Exactly. So we're not just going to be looking at, one approach to understanding this ancient tradition, but two.
I like it. So it's a deep dive with multiple lenses,
Yes,
looking
sorry.
at the same material. That's cool.
So I am excited to get into this. What do you think? Ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
All right. So let's start with the apple branch, right? Um, Kondratiev, he's an expert in Celtic language and lore, and he really set out to create a guide that's not just informative, but also practical.
Okay.
Like he wants readers to understand the history of these traditions, but also like find ways to, weave them into their modern lives.
So he's acknowledging that spirituality is something that is living and evolving. It's not just a historical artifact.
Yeah, he's not just giving us this museum exhibit,
Right.
He's handing us tools.
Yeah, he's saying take this and use it.
Exactly. He's like, come participate.
I like that.
All right, so let's talk about, some of the core beliefs of the ancient Celts. One that really jumps out at me is this concept of the other world.
Oh, the other world. Yeah, it's such a rich concept, isn't it? And it wasn't just some far-off heaven, in Celtic belief. It was more like a parallel dimension,
Okay.
almost like a vibrant realm where spirits, ancestors, deities dwelled.
So not like you die and you go to the other world. This is like something that exists alongside our world.
Exactly. And importantly, it wasn't seen as totally separate from our world.
That's really interesting. I can already see how that would influence, their approach to ritual and spirituality.
Absolutely. Celtic rituals often functioned as a way to connect with this other world, especially during specific times throughout the year.
Okay, so are we talking about like certain festivals or?
Yeah. That's where their unique wheel of the year comes in. Imagine like a calendar with 8 festivals,
Okay.
each one marking a turning point in the cycle of seasons and reflecting a different spiritual theme.
Okay, the wheel of the year. 8 festivals.
All right, so let's start with the 4 most prominent ones, which fall roughly between the solstices and equinoxes.
Okay.
There's Samhain, marking the end of the harvest and the beginning of the darker half of the yam.
Uh-huh.
Then comes Imbolc, a festival of hope and purification as winter starts to loosen its grip. Then we've got Beltane, celebrating the blossoming of life and fertility as spring reaches its peak. And then Lughnasadh honors the first harvest, a time of abundance and gratitude.
Wow, so each one really is connected to the rhythms of nature.
Exactly.
Like I can already sense how, these festivals weren't just about like parties or whatever. They were about aligning yourself with these larger forces.
Precisely. And Kondratiev goes into detail about the rituals associated with each of these festivals. He provides instructions for prayers, chants, offerings, even symbolic actions that would have been performed. It's almost as if he's giving us a blueprint for recreating these ancient ceremonies.
It's fascinating to think that we could actually like experience a connection to nature in that way even today.
Yes, you can sense that cyclical time the way the Celts did,
Yeah.
even in our modern world. And that emphasis on nature, it's not just symbolic, it's about recognizing that connection between the human world and the natural world.
Right.
And the Celts, they viewed nature as sacred and alive,
Okay.
imbued with spiritual energy. Their rituals weren't just about asking for favors from the gods, they were about participating in the cycles of life, death, and rebirth
Oh, wow, I like that.
that they saw reflected in the natural world.
Yeah, like stepping into the rhythm of the Earth's heartbeat.
Exactly.
Okay, well, speaking of powerful forces, we can't talk about Celtic spirituality without mentioning their deities.
Of course not.
I mean, they weren't really into the whole one god thing, were they?
No, not at all. The Celtic pantheon was diverse and colorful, with deities representing various aspects of life, nature, and human experience. And Kondratiev highlights some of the most prominent figures, like Brigid, associated with healing, smithcraft, and poetry.
Wait, poetry? That's an interesting combo.
It is a blacksmith god into poetry.
Yeah, who would have thought? So what other deities are we talking about here?
Well, there's Lu, a master of skills and arts, a shining god associated with the sun and light. And then there's the Morrigan,
Okay.
a far more complex and powerful figure linked with war, fate, and shape-shifting.
Oh, okay. That one sounds a little more intimidating
Just a little.
than the poetry-loving blacksmith.
Yeah, she's often depicted as a crow or a raven, symbolizing her connection to prophecy and the mysteries of life and death.
Okay, so these deities, they're not just these distant, unknowable beings.
Not at all.
Like they feel connected to the everyday experiences of the Celts.
Yeah, their fears, their aspirations, their connection to nature.
It's incredible. It's like you could see their worldview reflected in these figures.
And that's reflected in how Kondratiev incorporates Celtic myths and heroic tales into his book.
Right. Because those stories were important too, weren't they?
Absolutely. They weren't just entertainment. They were a way for the Celts to transmit values, moral lessons, archetypes for spiritual growth.
Right.
These myths provided a way to understand the complexities of the human experience and the mysteries of the divine.
So Kondratiev's not just giving us a set of rituals. He's creating like a holistic approach.
You got
Inviting us into a whole worldview. It's like he's saying, hey, if you want to really understand Celtic spirituality, you got to understand the stories they told themselves, the values they embodied, the way they saw the world around them.
exactly. And that brings us to a crucial question.
Oh.
How does all this ancient wisdom translate to our lives today, in the 21st century? It's one thing to admire the beauty of these traditions,
Right.
but how do we make them relevant to our own experiences?
Yeah, how do we actually like live this stuff?
Exactly.
It's a great question and a perfect segue into our next part,
Ooh.
where we will explore how Kondratiev attempts to bridge that gap, but we'll also introduce that contrasting viewpoint from the Celtic reconstructionist perspective.
Right, that's where things get really interesting.
It does. So stay tuned. We will be right back. Okay, so we've got this incredible ancient tradition, this whole way of seeing the world, and Kondratiev's giving us this like roadmap to connect with it today.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I'm a little intimidated by it all.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
It just seems so intricate, so mystical. Like, where do you even begin?
That's a really common reaction, actually.
What is it?
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way. And Kondratiev, he actually addresses this directly. He says, we don't need to become, like, scholars or reconstruct some ancient village to find meaning in these practices. Start small, manageable steps.
Okay.
Focus on making a personal connection, not on, like, perfect historical accuracy.
It's less about rules, more about finding what resonates.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Like, he talks about creating a sacred space, but it doesn't have to be anything elaborate.
Right.
He even gives tips on setting up a simple altar inspired by Celtic traditions, but, you know, with modern adaptations.
I was just reading that section.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests using natural elements like stones, feathers, branches, things you might find on a walk.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So accessible. And it really brings home that whole Celtic thing about connecting with the natural world, right?
Yeah, it's like those objects become reminders.
Mm-hmm. Of the elements, the directions, those cycles.
Yeah, it's like bringing a little piece of that ancient connection into your home.
Totally.
Creating this space where you can step out of your routine and into a more mindful way of being.
And you can even personalize it further. Kondratiev suggests, like, using colors and symbols that hold significance for each festival.
Right. Like for Samhain, he talks about black and orange.
Yes. Evoking those themes of death, transformation.
Yeah. It's like you're creating a visual language that deepens the experience.
Absolutely. Remember, ritual for the Celts engaged all the senses. It was meant to be a transporting experience.
Which reminds me of that section on meditation and visualization.
Oh, yes.
He even suggests trying to visualize yourself traveling to the other world.
Such a powerful practice.
It is. It's like, opening the doorway in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Crossing that threshold.
And the Celts believed the other world was where their ancestors dwelled, right?
That's right. Kondratiev emphasizes honoring our lineage, those who came before us.
Yeah. He talks about creating an ancestor's shrine.
Yes. Leaving offerings, reflecting on their lives, maybe even communicating with them.
It's interesting, that idea of ancestor veneration. It's not unique to the Celts.
Not at all. It's a very human thing, recognizing that we're part of a larger chain of being.
It's beautiful, connecting to something bigger than yourself, tapping into that ancestral wisdom.
And that connection extends to the natural world, too.
Of course.
Kondratiev emphasizes that for the Celts, every hill, every stream, every tree could be sacred.
Yeah, he really encourages readers to go out into nature, experience it firsthand, develop a relationship with the land.
Find a special place you can return to regularly.
Like a personal sacred grove.
Yes.
A place to recharge, reconnect, and find peace. And, this brings us back to ritual as that multi-sensory experience.
He does, yeah.
Imagine doing a ritual surrounded by nature.
Wow, yeah.
It really takes it to a whole other level.
Totally. And to make those rituals even richer, Kondratiev has this suggestion about language.
Oh, yeah. He suggests learning a few phrases in a Celtic language.
At least a few, right?
Yeah, he even provides some simple prayers and chants.
Oh, wow.
And, I thought that was just about authenticity at first, but he explains that the Celts believed language had a kind of magical power.
Oh, that's right. They thought words could shape reality, influence spirits.
Yeah, so incorporating even a little bit of those languages could really add a deeper dimension.
But, and this is something our book reviewer pointed out, there's a bit of a contradiction here.
Oh?
Kondratiev's advocating for linguistic authenticity, but he's also taking this pan-Celtic approach.
Right, blending from different cultures?
So how can you be authentic to one specific language if you're drawing from so many different traditions?
That's a good point. It's like, how do you balance authenticity with adaptation?
It's a question anyone exploring this path has to grapple with.
You don't want to just copy something without understanding it.
Got it. It's a delicate balance, honoring the past, but creating something genuine for you in the present.
It's like you're walking this tightrope.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Trying to honor the past, but also make it real for yourself now.
And that's where personal discernment comes in. There's no rule book for this.
Right.
It's about doing your research, engaging with the material, and finding what feels right for you.
It's about your own journey.
It really is.
And I think that brings us perfectly to our final segment, where we can reflect on all this and consider what it means for someone today who wants to connect with this path.
Awesome.
So stick with us. We'll be right back. Okay, so we've journeyed through these ancient Celtic beliefs. We've explored their festivals, their connection to nature.
We even took a trip to the other world.
We did, didn't we? And, we've talked about that challenge of honoring the past while adapting these practices for today.
Yeah, it's a real balancing act.
It is. And honestly, so much of what we've discussed has resonated with me. That connection to nature, honoring ancestors, the cycles of life and death.
Those are timeless themes.
They are. But I have to wonder, for someone listening who's feeling that pull towards Celtic spirituality, where do they even begin?
That's a great question. And I think the beauty of it is that there's no one right path. No, not at all. Celtic spirituality, like any spiritual journey, it's about exploration, finding what resonates with you as an individual.
So not about following a strict set of rules.
Right. Some might be drawn to the structured approach that Kondratiev presents. Others might connect more with a nature-based practice. And some might find themselves somewhere in between, blending things together.
Creating their own unique approach.
Exactly. It's like weaving a tapestry, bringing together ancient wisdom and modern experience.
I love that analogy. And it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you find the one right answer and you're done.
Absolutely. Your understanding can evolve over time. What feels right today might shift as you learn and grow.
So it's important to be open to that change.
Yes, to trust your intuition and your own connection to these traditions.
Speaking of continuing the journey, do you have any resources you'd recommend for people who want to dive deeper?
Well, the Apple branch itself is a great starting point, even with the critiques we've mentioned.
Right.
It offers a lot of information on beliefs, practices, history. And for those leaning towards the Celtic reconstructionist view, there are some great books and websites out there focusing on historical accuracy.
Awesome. And, museums, archaeological sites, historical societies.
Oh, what a wonderful resources.
It's amazing that we can still connect with this ancient wisdom today.
I know. It's powerful. It speaks to their ability to transcend time and place.
It really does.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away?
I'd say this. Celtic spirituality isn't just one thing. There are many paths, many interpretations. The key is to approach it with an open heart, a curious mind, and a deep respect for the traditions.
Beautiful. And to our listeners, remember this is just the beginning of your own exploration.
Keep asking questions, keep seeking those connections that speak to you.
And who knows what you might discover. Thank you all for joining us in this deep dive into Celtic spirituality. Until next time, may your paths be bright and your spirits strong.